had churros in Spain a few years ago, and it's the best because they literally just hand you a cup of the chocolate dip, and then if you don't have any more churro to dip in, you just drink the chocolate, which I think is how the world should work. Okay, my name is Nadia, and welcome back to my YouTube channel where I cook things, I make mistakes, mostly so that you guys don't have to. With Cinco de Mayo right around the corner, I figured this week we would make churros. Churros are a sausage-shaped deep-fried dough that can be topped with cinnamon, sugar, and even filled and dipped with chocolate, strawberries, and my favorite, condensed milk. Today I'm going to walk you guys through how to make churros from the dough to the frying, as well as how to make some dips to go along with the delicious dessert. There might even be a few surprises along the way, so stay tuned, and on that note, let's get cooking. 99.99% you already have all these ingredients in your kitchen, which makes preparing this dessert that much easier. In a pot, I'm going to combine 2 cups of water, half a cup of room temperature unsalted butter. I just cut mine into smaller pieces to make it go a little faster. To that, I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of sugar, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, it's editing, Nadia. That was definitely not vanilla, it was very much salt, but don't worry, we do add vanilla later on. Once it comes to a boil, which it will do quite quickly, trust me, take it off the heat and add your flour. You're going to want to mix it really well until it's all combined and there are absolutely no clumps. I'm going to transfer the dough straight from the stove into KitchenAid, our KitchenAid mixer, fitted with the paddle attachment. I'm going to beat it for a few seconds and you can really see all the steam that's coming out of it. We want this to happen because the next step is adding eggs, and if you add eggs to something that's hot, you risk scrambling them or even burning them. You can see at the beginning, while the egg is just kind of entering the mixture, it's not really combining with everything, so it's separating. Keep mixing until it's not separating anymore.
And there's the vanilla.
You can of course use a hand mixer or a spatula for this part. I wouldn't use a whisk because it would just clump inside and not end very well. If you think the dough is done, check to see how it falls. You want it to have a pudding-like consistency, so falling kind of really graciously all together, no clumps. If you find that there are clumps, you want to thin it out even more by adding eggs, or if you're having the opposite problem, add some flour to thicken it up. Once you get the right consistency, transfer the dough to a piping bag. I'm just using the 1M Open Star tip from Wilton. This is a brand new piping bag, so I'm going to show you guys how to prepare it and fit it with the tip. I'm going to place what I believe is called the coupler into the bag and then screw on the adjustment part that comes with it. And then as soon as it's screwed, I'm going to unscrew it, take out the coupler, and you can see that there's a crease that's formed in the bag. This is where you're going to cut it, so that way when you put the coupler back into the bag, it hits just the right spot. You can add your tip and tighten it with the adjuster. Now you just have to fill up your piping bag and start frying. So there's actually 2 ways that you can fry your churros. The first way is simply just piping and cutting the dough right into the frying pan. The churros can be any length you want. Of course, your pan is going to limit you a little bit in this sense, but I mean, other than that, have fun. The second way, if you want to get a little fancier, is just piping the dough onto parchment paper. I'm going to try out some hearts and some loops, and then I'm going to throw them in the freezer so that way when I transfer them to the pan for frying, they hold their shape. Plot twist, only 1 heart and 1 loop actually held their shape. The other 2 didn't freeze enough, so they didn't do anything. But I didn't put them to waste. I rolled them up into little balls and threw them in anyway. Fry the churros for about a minute or 2 on each side or until they're golden brown, and then transfer them to some paper towels so all the extra oil can absorb. You can see here that the first churro I fried totally burned because the oil was way too hot. So always test your oil before you go all in with the dough. You don't want to waste churros. They're too delicious to waste. Don't do it. While I continue to fry these, I figured I would give you guys a little bit of a history lesson on the churro. Some theories say that it originated in ancient Egypt, which would make sense because in a lot of Middle Eastern countries they have mushabak, which if you look it up, it's really similar to what a churro looks like. Other theories say that the churro originated from the Chinese breakfast dish yutao, I think that's how you say it, which would have gotten to Europe through Marco Polo's travels, which then would have been made by the shepherds somewhere in Spain because they would have used these really basic ingredients to make what they know as a fried bread. This theory also makes sense because in the 1800s, Mexico was actually in debt to a lot of European countries. So of course, in response to that, France, Britain, and Spain sent their guys over to Mexico to get their money. In that time, did they exchange recipes? I mean, maybe, you never know. What we do know is that France went 1 step further. They wanted to start a full-on empire in Mexico. The Battle of Puebla lasted for 1 day, and every year Mexico celebrates its victory on May 5th, or what we've come to know as Cinco de Mayo. So the next time you bite into a churro, you're actually biting into something that's been around for centuries and has been adapted by many cultures around the world. Food for thought. After they've cooled down for just a little bit, you can coat them in a cinnamon sugar mix. This is about half a cup of sugar and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, but of course you can adjust to your liking. You can of course just eat them like this, but you can also make a really yummy, thick, delicious chocolate dip to go along with it. For this Mexican chocolate dipping sauce, measure out 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips and add 1 cup of whipping cream. You're going to reduce the power level on your microwave to about 50% and melt the chocolate in 20-second intervals, making sure to stir in between. You can stop here if you want to just make a plain chocolate sauce, or spice things up with 4 tablespoons of butter, half a teaspoon of vanilla, and half a teaspoon of cinnamon. I want mine to be super thick, so I'm going to add some more chocolate chips, but if you wanted to thin it out, you could just add some whipped cream. If chocolate's not your thing, you could also make a strawberry dip by taking 1 pound of strawberries, these are frozen fresh, and adding them to a pan with a 1/4 cup of sugar and 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. This is going to thicken it up really nicely, and you can see I didn't add any extra water. The strawberries let that water out themselves, and of course this is going to differ depending on if you use fresh or frozen. Once it's bubbling really nicely and it has this nice thick consistency to it, I'm going to take my immersion blender just to get rid of some of the chunks. You don't have to do this, this is just what I like to do. Also, if you don't like strawberries, you can do this with any other fruit. I think it would taste really good with pineapple, of course, mango, blueberries, anything. These churros smell so good. I'm so excited to try them. I don't know what flavor I want to start with. I think I'm going to start with chocolate. This chocolate sauce is so thick. I'm so excited to try it. I could literally sip it out of this mug. I'm going to take it one step further and I'm going to add half a shot of Patron Cafe because I think that's just going to taste amazing. Ooh, it smells like tequila. Yep, okay. It might have been a lot for this little cup, but that's fine. I'm getting a hit of tequila. Besides the little hit of tequila, the chocolate dip is 10 out of 10. It's delicious. Next, I'm going to try the strawberry dip, and when I tell you this smells like a field of strawberries, it's such a comforting smell. I don't know what it is about it, but it's so nice. This one's also a little bit thick, which I kind of like. It's a little less sweet than a strawberry jam would be, but this is really good. I was also worried that the strawberries were going to be a little freezer burnt, but nope, it's literal perfection. Oh, and it's still warm, so it just tastes so good. Okay, moving on. The condensed milk, obviously there's nothing that you have to prepare for. You literally just pour it right out of the can. I had churros with condensed milk a few months ago, and it was surprisingly one of my favorite flavors. Holy moly, that's a lot of condensed milk. You can't go wrong with that one. It's so nice. These churros turned out perfectly. They're never going to compare to an authentic Mexican or Spanish restaurant, but for my first time making them, I'm pretty proud, and I can't wait to make them again to kind of perfect my technique a little bit. Overall, this recipe was really easy and fun to make. I had all the ingredients on hand, which made preparing it a lot easier because if I'm being honest, this video was very last minute. It's also always fun to see how such simple, basic ingredients that like everybody has in their kitchen can be transformed into something so cool. The next time I make churros, I definitely want to experiment more with their shapes. So I'm gonna keep them in the freezer for a few hours, if not overnight, so that way they really, really hold their shape when I go to fry them and I don't end up with this like mess. I'm gonna go share these churros with my family because they've been watching me make these all morning and I can tell they're just dying to try some for themselves. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I hope you learned something today, whether it be in the kitchen or about the history of the churro. Today we learned that these churros have been around for centuries. They've been adapted by many cultures, but one thing is for sure, they are absolutely delicious. I'll see you guys next Friday. La, 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 la. The chocolate dripping on the side. Our KitchenAid mixer fiddled with the Mom, I just need like 2 minutes. Yeah. It's good, it's just, I don't think I mixed it properly, so I just got a really big hit of the tequila. Okay. In that time, did they exchange Mom! Wow, it really smells like tequila. I don't know if I can do this.